This is Screen Learning. Welcome to today's show. Like this video, share this video, subscribe, click the notification bell, share. Let us begin. Hopefully you're having a great day. Today we're going to be getting into some relationship dynamics. Some people say, well, there's so many people online talking about relationship dynamics. Why do we have to talk about it? Well, most people talk about it from the aspect of monogamy, or they talk about it from the aspect of compatibility, energy. All that stuff has been covered. It's all been covered. We're going to talk about it from the aspect of individualism, which is the main thing we as screen learners discuss and adopt and use in our everyday life, and also the business aspect of it in regards to it being a family business. So that's how we're going to tackle it. I have not really seen anyone tackle it from that point of view because most people, they don't like individualism and they're not really good with business. They say like, oh, I got all these businesses, but then you ask them questions and they're all over the place, incoherent. The information doesn't make sense. It is more than likely because they're not speaking from a place of experience. So we're going to tackle it from both of those aspects. And I think it should be a really good discussion. There really should be some takeaways. And I think that it will foster an environment where we can have some takeaways that have never really been heard before, but you can let me know whether you've heard them or not. So again, welcome. And so one person that I am Facebook friends with is Tony Shantae. She's going to be on the broadcast Tuesday. We're going to go into a couple of broadcasts or videos that she has on her Facebook page. I think it really makes for good dialogue to kind of respond to a couple of videos that she's done and show you her work. So definitely everyone go follow her. She currently has 1,700, a little bit north of 1,700 followers on her personal Facebook page, which is amazing. Many people don't really have a lot of people following them on their personal Facebook profile. We're going to go into a Friday car thoughts that she put out, and that is marriage and kids before 30.
Hello, beautiful people, and happy Friday. So today I want to talk about marriage and kids before the age of 30. Is there an ideal age for when a person is truly ready for that? Is truly ready for marriage and kids?
No, there's no age when you're ready, because on one hand you could say, well, wait till you're after 30, but then even when you're after 30, you could have problems like money problems, health problems. You know, women are the ones who are birthing the children, so they know their bodies better than men do. Also, in addition to financial problems, health problems, you also have to consider probably mental issues. A lot of people have unresolved childhood issues or trauma from previous relationships, abandonment issues. There's a whole bunch of issues that we all got. So there never really is a perfect time or a best time. It's just really all about a preference and just knowing that you're going to make mistakes, and the faster you can learn from your mistakes and keep your word or maintain trust, compatibility, and communication, the better off you're going to be as a couple. Now, in regards to children, you may have two different people who have two different ways that they believe that children should be raised. You got to kind of talk about that as much as possible. But once the kids are here, sometimes a lot of people change their view on a lot of stuff, and you have to kind of just deal with that.
I'm from Baltimore, but I lived in Alabama for about 6 years, and the cultural differences truly amazes me. And more so, the mindset and just the overall idea of what success looks like as it relates to being married and having kids. When I lived down south, I met more people that were married and had been married for a long time, and they were married in their 20s and have kids. And I was like the lone soldier out there, you know, never being married, never having kids. But it seems as though that's the natural progression to have a marriage and children before the age of 30. And so I'm just curious, for those that married early, hindsight, just looking back and knowing who you are now, would you have waited? Do you feel as though you wish you had experienced more of life before marrying and having kids? Or, you know, is it amazing?
So for myself, I could say that I wish I had more people in my life who had successful marriages that I could have asked questions, or people who had children and I liked how they were living their life that I could have asked questions, because the people who were adults who were married and or had children or just had children, it just seemed like they weren't really good people to take advice from. And when they did give advice, it just seemed like the advice just wasn't all that good to take in. And then even now looking back, that advice just wasn't good. You had different people who would say things like the key to marriage is just don't get divorced, which I guess if you don't get divorced, you're going to stay married. Or it could be, well, you're going to fall out of love, but just don't disrespect the person, or don't not respect them. And then when you're talking to your partner, hey, what you said or what you did is disrespectful, and now you have to convince them that they were being disrespectful, and now you have arguments and being combative. And it's probably the same stuff everybody goes through when it comes to relationships. So I say for myself, looking back, it wasn't really within the marriage that I would have changed, or the person I had a child with that I would change. It probably would have just, something I can't control, which I wish there was more people who had successful marriages, people who were good role models, and people who were more of mentors who I could turn to for advice. Because there were a couple of people who were older than I was, and when asking them about advice, it just seemed that they weren't really someone I would turn to for advice. So when they gave advice, it was just like, okay, you're saying this now, but I know you, and you're not like this advice you're giving. So how reliable is it? And it's just a whole bunch of different factors like that. And looking back, I wouldn't have changed anything, because let's just say you say, okay, I wish I would have waited to got married and married somebody else. You could marry someone else and still have the same problems or different problems. Or you could waited till later on in life and been older, but now you have health problems. He or she has health problems. You got a lot of people don't talk about finances as far as what debt someone has, dental problems. There's a lot of different things that someone can say, well, this or that is petty, but they become a thing once you start living with someone, sharing expenses and sharing income. Everything becomes a thing, and it almost becomes somewhat of a power struggle if you're not careful.
And for those that are well into their 30s and older, do you wish you married younger, or do you wish you had kids earlier on in life? I'm just really curious what the overall mindset is when it comes to marriage and kids by the age of 30. So like, share, comment.
So by the age of 30, I didn't figure out different things until I became 35. And that's because you could go back and try to change stuff and wait. You're going to have either the same problems or different problems. My advice would be just to talk to the person about current events and see what their answer is. They don't want to talk about current events. What that could be a sign of is you're dealing with somebody who may not be smart. You could have money problems all day. You could have issues with your children going to school. You could have health problems between the both of you, dental problems. You could have problems with family members that are kind of doing things to the relationship. You can have a whole bunch of different issues. But if you're dealing with someone who is more emotional than somebody who uses logic and reasoning, now you can't really communicate and really talk things out, because you could be dealing with a problem where someone's uncle was disrespectful to someone and you're like, man, that was disrespectful, but the other person's like, no, my uncle's always like that. So now this person's going off of the feeling they've had with this uncle growing up, that their uncle is always like that. He's not going to change. There's no need to talk to him about his behavior because that's just how he is. So now you're thinking, okay, you could try to talk to your partner about this uncle, but if your partner is like, no, that's just how he is, I'm not talking to him, he's not going to change. Now you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to avoid this uncle. And then your partner is always bringing this uncle around or having you go to events where the uncle is, and you've had this problem with the uncle. And now your partner is somewhat put in a position where they have to choose the uncle or family member or family over you. And if you're dealing with someone who is focused on emotion, which includes emotional attachment to family, they're not going to see it in terms of, well, even though my uncle's always been like this, I need to have the conversation with him because my significant other is uncomfortable. No. You may be dealing with someone who has an emotional attachment to family, and they're just not going to do anything to change the situation. They feel that you should change how you look at the situation or how you perceive the uncle talking to you. And so with that, now it becomes a situation where you're just put in a compromised position to where you want to be in a relationship with your significant other. You don't want to check the uncle. You want to play family politics, but you can't really do it because there's this thing. So just different things like that, I would say, would be something I would think would you kind of want to just talk about current events while you're dating, talk about different scenarios, hang around this person and see the different sides of them and see how they react to different situations and how they act. Because I'm telling you, once you have a child with someone, once you live with someone, once you're married to someone, at that point, you experience everything. It's different than the mask coming off and there's the representative's gone and you're getting the real aspect of this person. No, living with someone, you experience everything, especially if you're in the same bed together. There's a whole bunch of marriages where people are married, but they got two separate rooms. Okay. Or they can't trust each other. It's a power struggle. They become enemies and they usually go their separate ways. So it's a lot to unpack, and age does make a difference, but your experience and how you perceive that experience also makes a difference. So trying to go back in time and change something, you're going to change an aspect of yourself. There really isn't a good answer. I would say that you just want to really figure out what makes you happy, what you want in life, and then finding a partner who can complement what you want. Talk about as many different situations and scenarios as possible. See how this person responds to current events. That way you can kind of judge the best way possible. Is this somebody you're going to be compatible with, or is this somebody who's a temporary thing? So that is, what the heck is this? All right, so that was just something she posted on like her Friday car thoughts, which was yesterday. And so she does a broadcast, kind of like how I do. And we're going to look at just a little bit of the broadcast, not much. I believe the broadcast had a lot of great information and just something that we can discuss.
When I posed this question, my question was, does monogamy still exist? And I posted it on Facebook.
Yes, it does.
72.4% said yes, it still exists. And then 27.6% said no. So there's a good portion of folks out there that just don't believe in monogamy and just don't believe that it's natural. So for you all that need a breakdown of monogamy, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, it's a state or practice of having only one sexual partner at a time. The state or custom of being married to only one person at a time. So you have monogamy, but you also have polyamory and polygamy. And please, let's not get the two confused. A lot of people like to use it as the same word, but they're two different things. So polygamy means one person that is married to more than one partner, whereas polyamory is the practice of engaging in multiple romantic relationships with consent of all people involved. So I'm finding out more and more that I have a lot of friends and associates that do not believe in monogamy, that they have these open relationships and honest conversations with their partner, and that they and their partner are truly open to a polyamory type situation. So I'm just really curious out there. There are folks that really believe that monogamy still exists. Is it natural? Is it unnatural? I'm confused, For myself, I believe in monogamy, not because of what Western society has placed on us. It's just because I don't have a desire to be with multiple individuals. I only have a desire to be with one and give my all to that one person and hope that that one person desires the same and really just wants to give their all to me. But I was reading an article from the Institute of Family Studies. And from this article, it kind of explains why monogamy is unnatural. And based on this article, it's unnatural both biologically and apparently is unnatural historically. So this is an excerpt that
All right, so before she explains that, so when coming up with the history argument, which is really good, I'm glad that she presented this. A lot of people will say, well, historically, one man has had several wives, or a couple of men have had different women they've shared. We have to understand that historically, women have not had equal rights as men. They didn't have the right to vote or own property. You could have domestic violence against a woman, and it was seen as normal. So in the past, historically, a lot of things were normalized that are not normalized now. So the history argument is only good for that. Well, not really even good, but it was for that time period. And as we've gotten better as a society and have gotten better as a culture, we see that it's better just to give everybody equal rights. Now, there are civilizations that they don't believe in equal rights. They believe that a woman is lesser than a man and a man is greater than a woman. There's people who are even online talking about that. Well, they'll say things like, well, a man, because he's physically stronger than a woman, he should rule a woman. He's the protector. He's the provider. But when you give men and women equal rights, or you give men and women equal playing field, you could. There's a really good argument that, let's say, a laborer is normally associated with low skilled work. So a man having more strength than a woman is only good for low skilled work or entry level. Whereas when you get more into managing people, you got to use your brain. So we here as individualists, we pretty much look at the most valuable resource you have is your brain. So that puts men and women at equal playing field, and creating an environment where you foster a disadvantage of one person over the other. To us, it's unfair, and that's the reason why we here support different things like masculinism and also feminism, because those are aspects of individualism, and it helps people have their individual rights. So when in referring to historically, we just have to understand that it was an equal playing field, even with race and ethnicity. You had governments, you had territories, and even kingdoms that made rules that disadvantaged one group over another. So in the past, when people may have had a polyamory or a polygamous relationship, it was out of necessity because women didn't have many choices. So that's why in this day and age, I don't think it's applicable. But if people want to engage in it, that's fine. But I'm going to break down why that doesn't work after she's done giving definitions.
Article that explains why monogamy is unnatural. Okay, and this is what it says. It says sperm are far more plentiful than eggs. A male can father almost unlimited number of children if he can get enough females to participate. And so based on
that's the key aspect of it. If you get enough females to participate. So let's just say you're in a multi-family relationship with one man and 4 women. Yes, he can get them all pregnant, but the more mouths you have in the group, the more resources you have to produce for those mouths. That's why having a large group is not always smart, because you have to produce more resources. And if the man is the provider and he has 4 wives and each wife has at least 1 child, he has to provide resources to take care of 9 mouths, including himself. And if they have any pets, they also have to have either multiple houses, multiple homes, or 1 large home, whereas you still need enough resources to pay for all that. And that's where that's the reason why we only align ourselves with those who share our self-interest, because resources are finite. So if people will give the what if argument. Well, what if he makes $500,000 a year? What if this? What if that? The what if argument is valid. However, just understanding that you have to produce enough resources for everybody, because if you don't produce enough resources, people are not happy. And different families who are in a polygamous or polyamorous, I hope I'm saying that right, relationship, when you see them on TV, they'll have these large houses, and each wife or sister wife gets a room. And the rooms are all separated from each other. And you have one wife who will agree to take care of all the kids. You have another wife who goes to work to bring in resources. And you got another wife who, you may have like other wives who are working around the house or working. Well, here's the thing about that. The wife, let's say if one wife agrees to be the big mama and take care of all the kids, well, she's not going to be able to exercise because she got all these kids. Because you're staggering them as far as getting them to take naps, teaching them, doing different things. And even if the children, let's say if they are going to school every day, she still has to be on standby to attend to these different children. Plus, it's more than likely she's at home cooking and cleaning and stuff with another wife. So she's not going to be able to keep herself up like the wife who's going to work every day. So one wife or one of the wives is going to be more attractive than the other, and there's going to be a political dynamic of there being some type of a competitive nature for the attention of the husband. And in addition to sharing resources like food, water, sharing a vehicle, because a polygamous family with one vehicle is going to be problematic. So now you got more expenses. You have a large liability because of this house you have to deal with, and you have a finite of inflows coming in. And you can ration everyone to make sure that the resources last, but it defeats the purpose of having all these mouths to feed if you're having to ration and you're not able to live just as good as you would if it was just husband and wife or just two people in a relationship. So that's just the aspect that really doesn't make it work, is the idea that you're going to have collectivism. We don't promote collectivism here, but just to discuss it, putting the needs of the group over the individual needs. So that means if you're gaining weight and you want to lose weight to look good, now the needs of the collective go above your own needs. So you may end up having to gain a whole bunch of weight and be like that because the collective or the family needs you to stay home and cook and clean. Or if somebody wants to go and start a business, if they want to go to college and get a degree, that stuff may be put on the back burner because the collective needs you to do XYZ instead of what you want to do individually. So yeah, we'll let that ride. So it's a lot of aspects when it comes to collectivism, when it comes to a a multi-family dynamic, and usually one of the sister wives is going to have more than one child. So now you have more mouths to feed, you have more personalities to deal with. It's just a lot going on. So most of the people who promote a multi-family, they do it because of the bedroom. Like, oh, well, a man's going to cheat anyway. If he has all these sister wives, he's less likely to cheat on the group. And the reason why that's not really true is because people cheat not necessarily because of the fact that the people that he is in a relationship with or the person he's in a relationship with are unattractive. It's really something dealing with himself. Because with affairs or just cheating, it's usually about him not being able to express himself with his wife or communicate with his wife how he feels, or it's a situation where they really shouldn't be together and he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. Same thing for women. She likes that he's a provider and has the resources, but she's really attracted to other people. And it happens all the time where people fall out of love, they fall out of attraction, and they become attracted to somebody else. And there are there are those aspects, but that's not really a good reason to have a multifamily because you want to sleep around. It's really all about, do you want to be in a community type of setting or a collectivist situation or not? Most people don't. And then when you're being on the outside looking in and you're like, well, this group does it, that group does it. Yeah, from the outside looking in, it looks good. But most of the time you have one person who's controlling the group, and he or she is controlling through threats and through fear. Like if you leave the family, you're not going to be able to make it on your own. So someone could be unhappy, but they can't leave because they don't have the resources. Because also you have situations where, let's say if you have a man and multiple wives, if he's controlling all the money, you might not be able to financially be able to leave. And it also is situations where they kind of cut people off from their family and friends, so you don't have anyone to turn to if you do want to leave. And then even if you're plotting to leave, somebody may tell on you. So it's in my opinion, the juice is not really worth the squeeze. It's just when people promote this type of thing or they're in these relationships, they're only going to talk to you and tell you about the positives or show you the positives, but not show you the whole dynamic of it. Because when you think about it, when you meet someone and you're going on a date, even though they're dating other people, you never really just stop and ask like, hey, can I meet the other people you're dating? Maybe we can all have a polygamous relationship. No, many people don't really do that. And, another thing to kind of tackle before we go back to the stream or the broadcast is people will say, well, the ancestors did it, or it works for animals, this and that. And as far as the ancestors, they had a different way of living. They had a different dynamic when it came to women. And also when it comes to animals, I mean, really? Okay. Somebody's going to bring it up in the comment section. So I just thought I'd just address that. But as far as the animals, if you want to live like dogs and cats or live like animals in the jungle, go ahead. But usually when people are talking about animals can do what we can too, or we used to, or whatever, you're talking to somebody who's married to only one person. So that should debunk a lot of stuff, but you just never know with comment sections.
On nature alone, it does not make sense for monogamy. It does not make sense for one person to be with one man if they have this gift of fertilizing a plentiful of eggs, okay?
Yeah, it's the mouths to feed. We're all for making babies, but then it's a plan for the babies. That's where the issue is, because most people don't even plan for the children. They don't have a 100-year plan, a 200-year plan. They don't have any resources to pass down to a child that they create as far as inheritance. It's just more of, we're going to love the child and do the best we can do, but there's no actual plan. The focus of the argument is always the man can get a whole bunch of people pregnant, but they don't really talk about after the person gives birth. Now it's like you got all these mouths to feed, but what are you going to do? And then usually the people who are like, well, what if he makes this? What if he makes that? But then you ask the person, well, do you make that? And they're like, well, no. So then it defeats the argument, because most people who are making a lot of money, they're not making a lot of money because they want to share it. They're making a lot of money because they want expensive things. They have nice tastes. It's the trappings of luxury. Okay. Would you rather have a nice house or a mansion that your husband or wife and a couple of kids live in? Or would you want to have a mansion with all these mouths to feed, and you might not be able to pay for everything, including expenses and liability, because of all the people you got as far as mouths to feed in this home? Because the expenses of a home go up the more people who are using stuff. But let's just get back to the video.
Now, historically, obviously humans are diverse when it comes to monogamy, but it says among mammals, okay, 9% of species are monogamous, and 29 are only 9% are. But as far as it relates to humans, 83%, and this was before Western imperialism, 83% of indigenous societies were polygamous and polyamorous. Okay, there was only 16% of societies that were monogamous. Okay.
That's because, again, women didn't have equal rights as men, and then there was more of a survival aspect. Right now, we have access to resources that makes it to where you don't have to be in a polygamous relationship. Now, as far as monogamy, it's like this. If someone's going to cheat on you, they're going to cheat on you, even if they could have 5 wives or 5 women in their home. If they're going to cheat, they'll cheat on all 5 of those wives and go get them another person outside the home. Same thing for women. A woman could have a bunch of sister wives, or she could have a bunch of brother husbands, where she got a whole bunch of men, and she still may go out and cheat just because it's just different. And whatever she has inside of her that makes it to where she doesn't want to be faithful, that's not going to change when you bring more people into the bedroom. It's just not going to change. Now, some people say, yeah, it does change. I did it, and I was faithful to all 5 of my women. Well, are you still with them? Well, no, it didn't work out. You know what I'm saying? It's just, there's a lot of different ways to what if the argument. I think the real main focus should be, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth having all these mouths to feed with these resources, in addition to dealing with personalities, in addition to dealing with mental issues, health issues, dental issues? Can you maintain your kingdom, or are you doing this just so you can have a bunch of people in your life as potential bedroom buddies? What exactly is the long-term plan? And you see even the reality shows of people in polygamous relationships, that stuff has ups and downs, and usually they're not telling you the whole story. Or they're doing the reality show because they need the money, because they got all these mouths to feed. That's why a lot of guys have misogynistic talking points geared at putting women in position to be dependent on them. Yeah. I mean, if let's say you have a man, for example, if he's controlling all the money that comes in, the woman won't be able to leave. So she has no choice but to stay. And whether she's happy or not, she will have limited options. That's why we support feminism, because men and women should have equal rights, equal playing fields. Same thing where we support equality amongst not just gender, but also races. You want to give everybody equal playing field and allow people to be able to compete and have choices. Because you take away someone's choices, now you somewhat enslave them to a certain degree. It's a good point. Good point.
And 1% that was polyandrous, which means that women can have multiple husbands.
Right.
So biologically speaking and historically speaking, according to this argument, or this article rather, the argument is monogamy is completely unnatural. And I'm just having a hard time really sitting with this. I guess because for me, if monogamy is not the norm anymore, and the norm is to be open with your partner, to have those honest conversations with your partner,
you should be open and honest with your partner regardless of what anybody wants or doesn't want. You should be open and honest with your partner. And that's one thing that should be a takeaway, is to be open and honest with your partner. And if they get upset or they want to leave you, you just got to deal with it. But it's better to be open and honest versus lying to yourself or lying to them, trying to save face. So I agree with that.
The time, because we all do evolve, and there may come a time where you're feeling someone else's energy and you want to explore that, and you are with someone. I guess when that time comes, to freely be able to explore that. I'm just in a position where I don't want to explore anyone else. If I'm with you, I'm with you. I don't know if it's the selfishness in me, but
there's nothing wrong with being selfish. We promote selfishness here. Continue.
I ain't trying to share my man with anybody else. I'm just not trying.
Anybody trying to share nothing anyway. It should be a reciprocal relationship as far as sharing and giving away stuff, or as some people say, community peen, if you will. I look at it like this. You don't get more by subtracting and dividing.
Trying to do that. That's just me. But I get it. I get why other people want to explore or do not believe that monogamy is natural. I guess I get it. I guess it's just not for me. I don't know. So,
and nothing wrong with it not being for you. I mean, it's not for me either. Because I look at it like this: the more people you have involved in the marriage business, the more people who either you have to accommodate with resources, or you have more people who, if they don't get a say-so in a decision, or they don't like a decision, now you're starting to create somewhat of a mutiny. They don't talk about that type of stuff either, where you have one man, you got multiple wives, and they turn on him, or they start plotting and planning. So you really want to have the right personality for the situation, because a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to be in a polygamous marriage so I can have help with my kids, I can have help with bills and help with this and help with that. And all they're adding is just another burden for the group, because if everybody's not able to pull their weight, they're being pulled, they're being carried. And now it's, do you have enough resources for everyone? Do you want to take time to deal with whatever they got going on before they entered into the polygamous marriage? Do you want to deal with their unresolved issues, deal with their mental issues, deal with their health problems, dental problems? The way I look at it is, anyone who's coming into, let's say, the group to have this polygamous, polyamorous thing, are they adding value? And it's more than likely that they're not really adding value. They are the same thing that they add, they also subtract, because they have their weaknesses and their strengths. And it's just better, in my opinion. Less is more, because you have less to worry about. However, some people might disagree and say, well, there's strength in numbers, but the numbers aren't as strong if each individual is not able to be a benefit, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. You're only as fast as your slowest person.
I came across this article, right, called 8 Signs a Monogamous Relationship is Not for You. And I was like, okay, let me read this. I already know a monogamous relationship is for me. But for those that are out there that just like, they are in this committed relationship with one person, but they still have that desire, or they meet someone and they fall in love with their energy and they realize they want to be able to explore, here are 8 signs to determine whether or not a monogamous relationship is for you. All right.
8 of them. All right, let's do it.
You're an extrovert who is genuinely passionate about relationships. Okay. So according to this, people who seem to be most dedicated polyamorous relationships are their hobby. They do it, they think about it, and they read about it all the time. They just love it.
An obsession. You kind of do have to be obsessed with something to be good at it. So, okay.
Have an enthusiasm for it. And if you're someone that's just genuinely passionate about the different relationships that you encounter, then possibly a monogamous relationship is not for you. I don't know.
Who is really passionate about every relationship that they encounter? Especially the ones that involve intimacy, or just, being more than just simply friends or business partners. I mean, you're excited about every relationship that you enter into or could enter into. I mean, myself, I look at it like, okay, I'm older. Is this person going to work out or not? But I don't know. Maybe there are some people who are excited to be in relationships. I mean, when you first get with somebody, it is kind of like a honeymoon phase, And when you see them and talk to them, it's like, oh, it's like being at a restaurant, and it's equivalent to your food coming out, and it looks good, you're hungry, I got that. But that wears out, that wears off. So then it's like another aspect is, well, if you love relationships so much, how come they're not working out for you? Or why aren't you married? Do you want to be married? Do you want them to work out? What's going on? So, but she's reading off a piece of paper, so.
Second one, you thoroughly enjoy communicating. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this, because I enjoy communicating, but that doesn't mean that a monogamous relationship isn't for me. But anyway, if the thought of developing your communication skills with your partner and other partners sounds fun and cool and interesting, then that's a really good sign that non-monogamy would work for you. It's not just about communication. It's a fun game. It's a skill you can acquire and play with. I don't know. I don't agree with that, but apparently these are the experts out here speaking. All right, so you're an introvert dating an extrovert. That's a sign that you're not ready for it, or you're not someone that wants to be in a monogamous relationship. So this point says non-monogamy is also a great option for introverts who are psyched more for a long time and would like to partner to have more time to go play and company to do other things with.
And see, this is the thing. When it comes to these conversations, there's people who want to do things with other people they can't do with their mate. And that, to me, it just has to be sex. It has to be sex. Because what are you doing? Bungee jumping? Oh, I want to bungee jump, but I don't want to bungee jump with you. No, this is talking about sex. And so I look at it like this. If sex is like that big a deal to where you just have to be with many people and you can't settle for one person for the rest of your life, then why settle down? Why get married? Why be in a relationship? Why not just be free and just not commit to anybody? Because even if you have two people, eventually you're going to get tired of the two, tired of the three, tired of the four. You're going to constantly get tired of what you're getting all the time because there's something going on with you and you have an itch that you need to scratch. Nothing wrong with that. But it's like, why even get into a relationship if this is a big deal? Because again, the more mouths you have to feed, the more resources you have to get. And there's not a lot of people who really are competitive to get more and more resources as the mouths need to eat more. Because as children grow, they need to eat. They need to eat more. They need more clothing, and then also you got to think about life. Health insurance. There's not many health insurance plans that will cover a polygamous situation. Same thing with dental plans. They'll cover a husband, wife, and a couple of kids or all the kids, but not a whole bunch of adults. So you really have to have a lot of money laying around, or you're going to be just living somewhere where you're living off the land. Now, if you're living off the land and you have people who are willing to help you in the field, help you in the home, you got some animals on your property, and you all are doing everything yourselves, then it becomes a different story because now you don't need money. You need all hands on deck. You need you're creating all these children to basically be field hands and future employees. And again, that kind of goes back to how it was historically, where people had a bunch of children and had these relationships because they needed field hands and future field hands to produce more resources. But the catch-22 is the more people you have there, the more resources you have to produce. But a lot of people didn't have any choice, and it was about sticking together and figuring it out. Whereas now you have a choice. We just have more choices and more problems that are not applicable to the past. So, there's definitely an argument for it. I just don't really see it in today's time unless there's people who are really wanting to live off the land and not live in like a city or live in a town where you can't really live off the land like you could a long time ago. Now there are people who live in like country towns or people who have these large acres of land, and they have farms and they have animals and they make it work. But the question is, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to live? Do you really want to work from sun up to sundown on a farm, plowing, planting, growing, and doing all things like that? I mean, if that's what you want to do, then, you know, more power to you. So it just depends on if you really want to do a whole bunch of work, or do you just want a regular relationship that we have in today's day and age, where you have two people and some kids and you don't have to produce many resources.
Hell no. Okay, I'm actually an introvert. I know that may come to a surprise to a lot of folks, but I really am an introvert. I'm someone that likes to be alone. I love my alone time.
I'm like that too. I ain't trying to be bothered with folks all the time. People would email and stuff, and I'd be like, I don't feel like being bothered with this. Just don't feel like being bothered.
I do a lot of talking during the day, so when I get home, it's just a fresh breath of air. And sometimes I don't want to be around people.
I'm the same way. I don't feel like being bothered with people, especially people who have a whole bunch of opinions, and you try to talk to them about stuff, and they're all over the place with their answer. I don't feel like dealing with that. Just give me just the facts. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Partner included. Like if you're at one side of the building or the house and I'm at the other side, as long as I know we're in the same house, I'm good. But according to this argument, because I'm an introvert, that means, and if I'm dating an extrovert, apparently because of that alone time, I'm okay with them going out and doing other things. That constitutes me not being okay with a monogamous relationship. Okay, let's go on to the next point. You love to share in general. Now that's a good sign. Okay, if you're someone that loves to give your love out to everyone, okay, that makes sense.
That means you for the streets. If you for the streets, maybe you should be in a polygamy, polyamory relationship. I could see that. Because if you for the streets, then you for the streets. That's both for both men and women.
Then maybe a monogamous relationship is not for you. Okay. The next point, number 5, you welcome challenging emotions.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's my biggest hang up, is dealing with challenging emotions, challenging personality. Somebody comes home and you're having a great day. They're not. You got to deal with their problems, and you're just like listening to them, and you're thinking to yourself, am I being punked? And the answer probably is no. It's like, for example, take a detour. So I started doing skits, and there are people who are, reaching out, emailing, giving their opinion on the skits, and they're like, I don't like them. They just, I thought it was real. And after telling them that, it's not real, it's all good, they still come back and they're like, well, I don't like them. They kind of rub me the wrong way and this and that. And, they're entitled to their opinion. But it's just that just hearing the different personality and feelings, it's okay for you two. But imagine if you lived with them and they had a problem with something like that, and you got to constantly be working at it and working with them and working on it. And I ain't got, I'm good. I could do it with one person, but just multiple people, nah, I'm good. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm closed-minded and I should lighten up. I don't know.
Okay, polyamory or non-monogamy is bound to bring about feelings of insecurity and feelings of jealousy and feelings. So it says, how do you deal with challenging emotions? Are you someone who's going to face themselves and be honest? And are you willing to have relationships with other people, but still also work on your relationship with your partner? Yeah, something about these little rules here are not sitting well with me. All right, number 6, it says, you don't let jealous thoughts or feelings consume you. Okay, within the monogamous model, okay, the feelings of jealousy, anxiety, or insecurity within a relationship are almost disloyal. So at the very least, you should be willing to learn how to deal with your jealousy. If you're hoping to make a non-monogamous relationship work, because it is a skill that you have to practice managing your own emotions. I think that is to be said for both monogamy and non-monogamous relationships. I think having a good control over your emotions is something that is important in all styles of relationships.
Yeah, I agree. Because you need logic and reasoning to solve problems. Emotions, nah, because emotions can get in the way. Especially when you got to make a tough decision and someone lets that decision or outcome of said decision kind of stay with them for a long period of time.